Oh yeah. Speaking of the LAFC team,
Nice transition.
time to move on to uh, a game that nearly didn't kick off apparently because fans decided smoke was a lot more fun than football. A game that was delayed for probably 5 6 minutes waiting for the smoke to clear because the referee simply could not see. Uh, and as soon as it kicked off, LAFC were in high press mode. They win the ball back in a dangerous area, go forward, and the ball gets played to the foot of the only player you don't want unmarked from 12 yards out, Carlos Vela, who hits the cross, a guy who finishes 11 times out of 10 in that spot. And that's when you knew this game was not going to be a pretty one for Houston. Once again, Carlos Vela, 4 minutes into the game, does actually get his goal, but he was offside. Winning the ball in high press. That is the theme of what LAFC was doing. They weren't letting Houston play out because they knew Houston was going to make this game just kind of ugly. That's the way they've been playing. It hasn't been pretty. At times, there are moments where they're pretty, but for the most part, Benny has gotten them to just be defensively sound, get stuck in your ways, reset when you have to, and go. And LAFC took advantage of that, knowing that they weren't going to be able to break out of that press. So, a very much different game from uh, the game that preceded it, the Eastern Conference Finals, in that it wasn't as hyped. Is that the feeling that you got?
Oh, it was. Do you mean like before the game started, like that kind of
I
hype,
mean,
or you
like
just
when you
like
turned the
the?
game on, did you were you as invested in it?
Oh no, not even close.
Yeah,
It
I
was a
was.
lot slower. There was no rivalry aspect to it. I feel like Houston was just kind of bunkering most of the game, trying to see out as much as they could without having to like have too much of the ball, I guess. So yeah, it was definitely not nearly as exciting as the Columbus Cincy game. It was very disappointing to go from that game to then this one.
Yeah, and it wasn't a bad game. It just didn't have the same appeal. So it didn't bite as well as the other one did. Houston were able to get a good chance here in the seventh minute after Quinones swung the ball to the back stick to Corey Baird of all players, and as we mentioned, his finishing ability was called into question, and Maxime Crepeau made a pretty good save on him. But it kept the game 0-0. And those are the moments that Houston needed to convert, and it just felt like they weren't getting much going at all. They it just felt like I don't want to say anti-football because I don't think that's the way that they played. But if you look at um, the stats from that game, and
Yeah, I was just looking at that too.
they may maybe
They so I
go
was
ahead.
just talking about them not having the ball, but they actually had 70% of the ball possession, but they generated less than half a goal in XG with 70% of the ball. It's like, what are
Yeah,
you doing with the ball? Just passing it around, I guess.
yeah. Well, I mean, it just felt like it just, and again, that might be because they were up, they were down 2-0, and LAFC was letting them have it so they could, you know, take it back in. But you're looking at a team here with 10 shots on target to LA's 18. And as you mentioned, 70-30 in possession. It, this is where not having that true number nine, that Sebastian Ferreira, for example, hurt this team, in my opinion. When you have that much of the ball, you expect to generate chances that are useful and impressive. And it just was completely underwhelming. I don't know about you, but personally, I think that has to be number one on the list right now is either finding a way to fit Sebastian Ferreira back into this team or finding the number nine that'll get it done. I think Corey Baird is more than adequate as a guy off the bench, but to be your starting guy, he clearly couldn't get it done. Um, again, that half a goal XG is criminal for a team that had 5 shots on target, 2 off target. Like 5 shots on target, and I'm looking at this shot map here. Every single one of them, except for 4, were from had to be 60 yards out. Not 60. I'm sorry. 30 yards out. Like, you look at LAFC's, everything for LAFC's inside the box outside of 3. Now, again, credit to LAFC's defense, right? We talked about Giorgio Chiellini, and he was one of the really, really strong players, I thought, in that game, where his experience, like we mentioned before, came out in waves. Understanding when to step, understanding when to drop, understanding when to go in for the tackle or to contain, his ability in the air, his ability to be in the right place at the right time. That is something that really, in my opinion, allowed LAFC to give up that possession. They didn't care if Houston was going to do it, because anytime that ball got played in, they knew Chiellini was going to make the right decision on whether to step or to go, and everybody just followed his lead. That's something that I did not expect to come out of him when they signed him to a multi-year deal at age 37. But it's paid off for him. It really has.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just come out and say it that this Houston team was lucky to get to this far in the playoffs. Their luck ran out. Hector Herrera dragged this team as far as he could. They finally played a team who is capable of being top of the West, has tons of playoff experience, and they met their maker there. They finally, I guess, showed the level that I feel like, at least on my end, that I was waiting to see from them. And honestly, I'm glad this Houston team doesn't have to go up against Columbus in the final, because I think that would be a very ugly game.
Yeah, that would not be a fun one. I'm watching the highlights here and all of these Houston kind of attacks. The movement's non-existent. Like, you watch LAFC and you got Buanga and Vela running off each other with Oliveira on the outside. They're all making these runs. Anybody from the midfield is pushing forward at any time. Houston are just passing the ball around the box. It's 5 versus 8. Nobody's checking into space. You've got no attacking fullbacks getting up high to support it. And they're just like, all right, we're going to rip it from 40 yards and hopefully catch this guy off his line. But you're like it feels like the attack was just really stale. I think that's the best way to put it. And then set pieces, right? Not Jesus Maria. Chiellini gets his head on the ball first, and our Lord and Savior Ryan Hollingshead. It's always Ryan Hollingshead who puts the ball away just before halftime. I think that if Houston gets in 0-0, it's a different game, because now they're like, all right, we got 45 minutes to hold on if we need to get to extra time penalties, and they might just bunker. But now it's halftime and they need to go get one. Well, now they got to come out of their shell and they got to play a little bit, and that opens them up. But again, even on set piece long throws here, right? Like, they've got 2 players in the box, 3 players in the box, and they're floating it in, trying to take it on to Jesus Murillo and Giorgio Chiellini. Like, the urgency just wasn't there, even when down a goal. So, the game probably should have been a lot more. I think Steve Clark had a couple of really good saves that kept them in it. But yeah, it just feels, even in transition, you're watching this. They had a corner kick here, and in transition, just no urgency to get out, no urgency to press. Steve Clark bailing them out when they can, but yeah, defensive transition, they're lazy to get back if they do go forward. Own goals, just again a team that I think saying that they got lucky to be here is a little disingenuous. I think they earned their spot here, but I think this shows what LAFC is in comparison to good teams in the league, right? I think Houston did fine. Their tactics worked for the most part. They were able to hold off, for the most part, their team with their goalkeeper making big saves. They just couldn't convert, and they're missing that attacking piece. So they did just announce their end of season moves. I'm going to see if I can pull them up here in real time and we can chat about it to see what they're looking forward to. There it is. Perfect. So Corey Baird and Griffin Dorsey are out of contract and currently negotiating with the team to come back. Griffin Dorsey, a massive part of that right-sided defense. I think they get him back. Corey Baird, maybe not. Declined options for Achara, the striker. Midfielder Charles Auguste, who I don't think played too much. Beto Avila was also declined. Teenage Hadebe, the DP, had his contract declined. Daniel Rios and Matthias Vera also had them. They are not bringing back Ivan Franco either. So a lot of work to do in the front of that group. Something we'll definitely talk about in our preseason previews for the clubs. Is there anybody else? Do you think that they need to get another striker? Are you happy with who they've got? What are you thinking?
Oh yeah, they definitely need to get another striker. And great opportunity, have a DP spot open. Maybe two if things materialize, but you definitely have one open now and you desperately need it. Go and get yourself a striker because Hector Herrera needs somebody to play the balls to. And, Houston can only win so many penalties for Posse. So
I will tell you that at the beginning of the year, I said that Houston could make the playoffs because for the first time since 2017, which is the last time they made the playoffs, they had an attacking number 10 proper. Amine Bassi was that guy with Hector Herrera's assistance. Don't get me wrong. But now they need to take it to that next level. You want to compete with the LAFCs. You want to compete with the Seattles and really knock them off time after time after time again. You need to get somebody who's going to put the ball away 20 times a season. That's got to be number one. I think the back line is okay. You probably want to go look for another center back now. Unless Bartlow can step in and be the Kip Keller of 2024. I'm not cursing him. We're not doing that yet.
you already just did. It's over.
But yeah, you've got a really decent layout here that could be a great setup for you. You've got all the pieces. Your defensive, your right back choosing between Griffin Dorsey if he comes back, Franco Escobar, Chase Gasper, Brad Smith at left back, defensive midfield and Artur, Carrasquilla, Herrera, and Bassi in that midfield four. I mean, you're literally Quinones on the left was great. You need a 20-goal striker and maybe a wide right player to keep Amine Bassi in center. But overall, LAFC were able to put them off and make it to the final game of the MLS season. So I turn our attention to that.